اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والفجر وليال عشر والشفع والوتر والليل إذا يسر هل في ذلك قسم لذي حجر ألم تر كيف فعل ربك بعاد إرم ذات العماد التي لم يخلق مثلها في البلاد وثمود الذين جابوا الصخر بالواد وفرعون ذي الأوتاد الذين طغوا في البلاد فأكثروا فيها الفساد فصب عليهم ربك سوط عذاب إن ربك لبالمرصاد فأما الإنسان إذا ما ابتلاه ربه فأكرمه ونعمه فيقول ربي أكرمن وأما إذا ما ابتلاه فقدر عليه رزقه فيقول ربي أهانن كلا بل لا تكرمون اليتيم ولا تحاضون على طعام المسكين وتأكلون التراث أكلا لما وتحبون المال حبا جما كلا ودكت الأرض دكا دكا وجاء ربك والملك صفا صفا وجيء يومئذ بجهنم يومئذ يتذكر الإنسان وأنى له الذكرى يقول يا ليتني قدمت لحياتي فيومئذ لا يعذب عذابه أحد ولا يوثق وثاقه أحد يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية فادخلي في عبادي وادخلي جنتي صدق الله العلي العظيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We are now with you on the third night of the commemoration of the Shahada, the martyrdom of our dear mother, Seyed Fatima al-Zahra, inshallah. Thank you for joining us every night. And we pray that you all benefit as much as we have from his majalis. Inshallah, as you know, we have our dear Maulana Sayyid Abbas Razavian speaking for us. We'd like to invite him in Allah salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى قيام يوم الدين. Brothers and sisters, I send you my deepest condolences for the martyrdom of Lady Fatimiyya Zahra salawatullah alayha. I thank each and every one of you for coming to the majlis of our mother, Lady Fatima. The majlis that is a majlis of light and nur, as one of her very common names and well-known names is Az-Zahra, meaning light, that she would fill the city of Medina, the homes of Medina of light. And today, after 1400 years of her martyrdom, she fills the believers' hearts with light and nur. A light and nur that we are in desperate need of in such a time period where the world is full of darkness, the world is full of selfishness, We need to learn lessons from the life of Sayyidah Fatima Zahra, our mother that at the age of 18, while expecting, she gave up her life, she sacrificed her life for the well-being of society. And we talked about last night, that in her speech in Khutbah Fadakiyya, which is very interesting to know, one of the oldest sources of Khutbah Fadakiyya, which is recorded around over 1,000 years ago, is not only attributed to Shias, the Sunnis also have brought this khutbah in Balaghatun Nisa we talked about, the book that is a compilation of the speech of ladies, that he brings in this book the speech of Lady Fatima, and also afterwards brings the speech of Lady Zainab. And these are sermons that we really need to think about and to analyze, and inshallah tonight we'll also read another part of it. But from that specific discussion that we had, we are learning and analyzing this saying. When she turned to the people of Medina, Ma'ashir al-Muslimin al-Musra'a ila qil al-Batil, O people who rush towards false sayings, al-Muqdiyya al-Fi'l al-Qabih al-Khasir, and are indifferent to disgraceful and losing actions. Two reasons why the people of Medina abandoned Imam Ali and Lady Fatima are expressed here beautifully. One, they rushed towards false sayings, they accepted false information. Two, they were indifferent to disgraceful and losing actions. Meaning that, brothers and sisters, besides personal spirituality or individual spirituality, Lady Fatima is calling the people of Medina, waking them up, saying, do not be indifferent to your society. When you see disgrace, when you see actions that are forbidden, when you see people are being misguided, you should care about them. Because if a person guides one person, it's as if it is better than what the sun shines upon. Unfortunately, there is a misconception. And that misconception is that we can have spiritual growth without one another, without worrying about our society, without being concerned about our society. This is a misconception that exists in our communities, that as long as you do the very apparent wajibat, you pray, you do salat, you do siyam, you fast, you go to hajj, and you keep to yourself. And a lot of times maybe Muslims in Western society have a little bit of fear with sharing their lifestyle, sharing their way of life, their belief system with others. Therefore, we get in a situation where we are isolated from our society. We're isolated even from our brothers and sisters sometimes. So unfortunately, there's a misconception that deen, religion, is just a thing that you worry about for yourself, that you just have to concentrate on your own spirituality, and whatever happens, happens. We don't have in Islam such sayings as, that's not my problem. In the West we have that, but in Islam we don't have such a thing. That's not my problem. Every problem that is in society is our own problem. And this is what we're trying to learn tonight, is how to think of one another, how to think of our society, how to do islah and reform our societies, inshallah. And we learned from Sayyidah Fatima Zahra salawatullah alayha. We talked about one of the main reasons that sometimes we are isolated and we don't care about each other as much. One of them is being afraid. It's not that we don't have the verses in the Quran. It's not that we don't have the hadith. Sometimes we're afraid to be active in society. Sometimes we're afraid to do our social duties. But as we mentioned, that the believer should not be afraid. The believer and those that are waiting, anticipating, and helping Imam Mahdi return, they are stronger than a mountain. They are We have in the hadith we read, Al-Mu'min aslab min al-jabal. A mu'min is harder, stronger than a mountain. Al-jabalu yustaqal min, wal-mu'min la yustaqal min. A mountain is possible that you could chip away a part of it, take a part of it away, but a mu'min you cannot from his religion. So therefore we have to focus on the way that we want to live our lives, and that when we look at what happened in this last year, we see around the world there was a pandemic, and people were concerned, and they went shopping, and some were hoarding, and some were taking. This happened all around the world, some countries less, some countries more. But these are all signs that people really think that as long as they are okay and their needs are met, then it is okay for society to be deprived of, or a society to be unfed, or a society not to have the basic necessities. But is this the way that Allah, is this the way of Allah's religion? Is that we only think about ourselves, we only care about ourselves? We also see another group in this year that we had, and continuing efforts from the nurses and doctors, and sacrificing themselves, sacrificing their health of their family members. So we do see two sides to this story. Some that are making a profit off people's misfortune, some that are hoarding and taking and not caring about others, and some that are sacrificing themselves. How beautiful would it be? Imagine an ideal society, during the time of Imam Mahdi and before, we can work on regaining such a society that if they say there's not enough common need, there's not enough necessities, that people would say, maybe I'll take a little bit less, maybe I don't need this item, let others have it. And then the other person says, let another one have it, let another one have it, let someone else have it. And then there would be an overabundance. There would be, everybody would have enough. So we see that in the way that we live our lives, we're not basing our lives on the wellness of others. We always think about ourselves. And many times even our families, and that's not it's good to care about your family, but that's not something that is a very high level of ethics. We talked about ethics being an ethical action, being either individual or being divine, us and God, us and ourselves, or societal. But the maximization of societal ethics is when someone reaches a point that they sacrifice what they have for themselves and they give to the society. And that is what we are trying to encourage. And that is what we're trying to learn from the life of Sayyida Fatima Zahra. Just look at the obligations in Islam. Allah wants us to worship together. Look at how much reward there is in Salatul Jama'ah. When one person prays, when two people pray together, when 10 people pray together, the angels cannot count how much reward that is. Look at how much emphasis there is on going to Salatul Jum'ah, for example, or how much emphasis there is in talking about social matters or political matters in Salatul Jum'ah. You cannot separate Islam, the religion of Islam, from the societal side, from this interaction that we have. We're instructed not to live in a life of isolation. We're instructed to care about others. And we're going to read, this is how Imam Ali lived. This is how Lady Fatima lived. They truly sacrificed themselves for the well-being of society. Look at, for example, the commands we have. One of the interesting commands we have, people sometimes mix these up, is irshadul jahil, meaning that it is an obligation, it is wajib for us, if we see someone and they do not know the ahkam, they do not know the rulings, to teach them. Irshadul jahil is wajib. One of my friends saw the late Marja Taqlid Ayatollah Mirza Jawad Tabrizi, may Allah bless his soul, in the shrine of Lady Fatima early in the morning. And a young person was doing his salat in a way that, in salat you have to, when you do ruku, you have to be still. And then when you come and you do your dhikr, and then when you come back up, you have to be still. So he was continuing, he was doing his dhikr and ruku' in motion, which is makes your salat void. So this great marja taqleed, and this young person didn't know who this person was, because he wasn't that famous amongst normal people in society. Those that knew Ayatollah Tabrizi, they knew the amount of knowledge he had. He stood up and told him, he said, if you do salat like this, your salat is batil. He started advising him, doing irshad to the ignorant, or we could say the misinformed. Even though he's at the age of 70, 80, he's standing up and teaching this person how to do their salat, the marja taqleed. So we see that the duties we have in Islam and this misconception that we have that we can just stay in our homes, and especially now we're quarantined, we're staying at our homes and we're just with our families. And yes, families is a part of social ethics, we can say, families are, of course, but that we don't really care about society. Society can become corrupt, society can do whatever they want. That's fine, that's them, that's not me. But this is a misconception. Look at other obligations that we have, that Islam is a religion of social interaction. It is a religion of visiting the sick. When someone is sick, you visit them. It is a religion of doing dua together. It is a religion that emphasizes so much on praying for others. And how many times is it worth more, will you get answered your prayer if you pray for someone else? Because sometimes when we pray for ourselves, Allah looks at that tongue and looks at those hands, and that tongue is full of ghaibat, of backbiting, of lying, and sometimes corruption. And those hands are full of corruption. But then when you pray for your brother in Islam, you see that Allah does not look at these conditions and accepts it. Or when you look at Hajj, Allah wants us, one time in the year, all together to collectively perform Hajj. So it's very beautiful that this religion that we have is also, we focus on ourselves. We have a private time, of course, but the emphasis that is given on the value of human life, the value of treating each other fairly, the value of growing together, it is remarkable. How else do you think that Imam Mahdi will come back? You think that we're just going to stay at in our homes and just do dua? Some people ask about the 313 and they say, okay, if the 313 are met, that's it. Imam Mahdi will come and that's it. So the way they're waiting for Imam Mahdi is individually, one person, two people, 300, until it reaches 313. But even though this is a requirement, this is, we call the shart al-lazim, this is a requirement, but it's not shart kafi. It's not a sufficient cause. There are other also causes and also other requirements that need to be met for Imam Mahdi Ajallahu Ta'ala Faraja to come back. And we look at other hadith that you have thousands of people. Yes, the 313 are the best and the finest and the best of companions. Maybe even some of them will come from the grave, possibly. There will be raj'at of some of them. But we are looking at other conditions, and that is in general that the world and that the mu'mineens are in a position of power, they're in a position of support, they're in a position of sincerity. So we're looking at, in terms of a community being good, in terms of a society being good, not only individual, say a great arif there, and a good arif there, a good alim in that city, and a good alim, no. A group of mu'mineen that they live the life of Sayyidah Fatima Zahra that we're going to mention, sacrifices that she had. Let's look at one of the sacrifices that tonight I want you to, inshallah, get more, inshallah, information about the life of Lady Fatima. Look at the story of Ayatul It'am, the story of feeding, the verse of feeding people. The story is this. First of all, this verse in Surah Al-Insan, these few verses are about Imam Ali, Lady Fatima, Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein. That when Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein became sick, the Prophet came to them, and this is from Zamakhshari, because not only do Shias talk about this verse being for Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, also Sunni say it as well. The Prophet went to visit Imam Ali alayhi salam and said, "Oh Abul Hasan, it is better for you to vow for the health of your sons." So Imam Ali and Lady Fatima, they fasted for 3 consecutive days. When they fasted for 3 consecutive days for the children for the boys to be healed. When they healed, they took around, it says something around, we could say around 30 pounds of barley, and Lady Fatima, she ground the barley, she baked bread, and 1/3 of the barley was baked. And at that time of iftar, a beggar came to their house and said, "Oh, the household of Muhammad, I am a poor person. Please give me food. May God give you heavenly food." They preferred him to themselves and gave the bread that they baked, breaking their fast with water. This is from Zamakhshari, Sunni source. So I'm talking about giving, reaching, not only observing people's rights, and we're going to talk about this, that having justice is one part of the requirements of a healthy society, that everyone is treated fairly, eradicating racism, prejudice, sexism, that everyone is treated with respect. That's the bare minimum. I'm talking about, look at Ahlul Bayt as being the pinnacle of spirituality. And when it comes to a person and their societal duties, look at what the Ahlul Bayt are doing. And when it comes to now, you wouldn't say here duty, you would say ihsan. Here they are actually doing ithar. Here they're doing sacrifice, which is not an obligation anymore. An obligation is to feed people, but Allah doesn't say you have to be hungry to give your food to the others. That's called ithar, when you sacrifice for society, which is the highest level of a person that is conscious of and aware of their society and loves their society. So they gave their food the first day. The second day, they fasted. The next day, when they brought the bread at night, an orphan went to their house. Then they gave the food to eat again. Brothers and sisters, remember, Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein are there. Lady Fatima is a mother. How hard is it for her to give the food of her family to people that she might not even know who they are? How hard is it? This is the heart of Lady Fatima. This is the person that tonight you are crying for. And this is why you are crying for her. 1400 years and her name is still remembered, because this is what she did. This is how she treated people. And this is where we want to go. And this is the beauty of Islam. And this is what we have to share throughout the world, these stories that both Shia and Sunni accept. So they give to the orphan. She's not complaining. This is my children. This is our food. What are you doing? No, they gave all. They're happy. And again with water. On the third day, a prisoner went to the house. Again, they gave barley food. In the morning, Ali took the hands of Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein. They went to the Prophet. When he saw them, he found them. They were shivering from hunger. Show me stories in history where people will give and have their children shiver, fast and shiver from hunger, and give and deprive from their own families. In such a time, we need these stories. When you see the hoarding, when you see people abusing each other and taking the resources of one another, countries taking resources of another, we need these lessons in society that there were people that lived 1400 years ago. There was a mother that lived 1400 years ago that would give food while her children would shiver. And this is specific to Ahlul Bayt. Remember, some things I don't want you to these are prescriptions for Ahlul Bayt. Just how the Prophet they had some specific prescriptions so Allah can show their superiority over all of creation and what they were capable of. So the Prophet saw them shivering from hunger. I am saddened by seeing you in this condition. He went to their house together with them and saw Fatima while worshiping with her stomach diminished and her eyes hollowed. She was worshiping Allah, her eyes were hollowed. He was saddened by seeing her. Then Jibreel went down to the Prophet and said, God congratulates you for having such a household. Ya Rasulullah. This is the lady, this is the home that they set their house on fire, such a night that she is going to be buried on such a night in private. God congratulates you for having such a household, and then recited these verses. I'm going to recite 3 of them. Read Surah Al-Insan. وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ مِسْكِينًا وَيَتِيمًا وَأَسِيرًا. And they gave food in spite of love for it. They gave what they loved, that sacrifice, for the needy, miskeen, the needy, the orphan, and the captive. إِنَّمَا نُطْعِمُكُمْ لِوَجْهِ اللَّهِ. And that's very interesting. The Quran is quoting from Ahlul Bayt here. This is the sayings of Ahlul Bayt, their speech in the Quran. إِنَّمَا نُطْعِمُكُمْ لِوَجْهِ اللَّهِ. Saying, we feed you only for the continence of Allah, because of Allah, this is why we feed you. And this is an important point that we're going to talk about if we have time tonight. That when you do things for the society, for one another, you have to do it with the condition of God, for God. Because Allah wants you to do this. Allah will reward you for this, and you're fulfilling the commands and the desire and what Allah wants from you. You cannot separate these types of divine ethics from societal ethics. Have to be done together in line. And that is the misconception. We have extremes, some that just worship and worship and worship and don't care, and those that just help people and they don't put God. We're looking at these things being in line. Divine ethics and social ethics. Then it says, La nuridu minkum jaza'an wa la shakura. We wish not from you reward or gratitude. Inna nakhafu min rabbina yawman abusan qamtarira. Indeed, we fear a frowning and fateful day from our Lord. Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam had fear of Allah. We had fear of Allah, awe of Allah. Sometimes we worship and pray a little bit and we get very happy about ourselves, very content. Oh, I'm already thinking about where I'm going to be in heaven. I'm guaranteed that heaven already. It says, Inna nakhafu min rabbina. So we see in this verse, which is a beautiful verse of Quran, about Lady Fatima, about a mother of the household, that is, her children shivering. Why? Because she cared about society. Why? Because she cared about others. Why? Because she would say, Ajar thumma dar. She would pray for the neighbor before praying for her own house. When she talks about Imam Ali in the khutbah of Fatimiyya, and how Imam Ali cared about society and how Imam Ali cared to reform society, he was always ready to serve the creation of God, she says in the khutbah of Fatimiyya, looking over the welfare of the people, endeavoring and toiling in this way. He was not affected with the censor of any censor. While you were living a life of pleasure and peace, O people of Medina, you were living in a life of pleasure and peace, and were far away from the severity of battle. You were in enjoyment and security, while Ali ibn Abi Talib was sacrificing himself for you. Somebody has to go to the battlefield so that the city can be safe. And that was Ali ibn Abi Talib. They gave their food for the people. They gave their lives for the people. They risked themselves and whatever they had for the people. One of the ulama we have, and this is a question I ask you, brothers and sisters, and truly I have not reached this myself. Do not think that I am a perfect na'udhu billah person, and these are things our teacher, Sheikh Ahmad al-Mushtahid, would say, also speak for yourself too. When you give a speech, speak for yourself and give advice to yourself. I'm giving advice to my own self now. We had a great scholar by the name of Sheikh Muhammad Hussein Isfahani. I believe the story is from him. He is one of the teachers of Ayatollah Bahjan. And they usually say Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Qadi Tabatabai is the teacher of Ayatollah Bahjan. He was, but also he was deeply influenced by the life of this great alim, Sheikh Muhammad Hussein Isfahani, which is famous to be known as Kompani because of the wealth that his family had, company. And he gave all his wealth for the people of Iraq that he lived. He had, they said, like his father, some would say he would have a railroad and a huge amount of wealth, and he gave it all in the way of Allah. They asked him, and then they mentioned, let's say to him, what would you do in the last, and you explain what he would do in the last 30 minutes of your life. I want you guys to think this is the night that is attributed to be the martyrdom of Lady Fatima Zahra. If they asked us right now, you have 30 minutes to live, what would you do? Usually the idea of religion that we have, it is usually, again, going back to ourselves, reflecting and thinking that, and this is not bad, this is true, that let me do tawbah, istighfar, let me read some Quran, let me read some ziyarats, and get ready for my death, get ready for Israel to come, and pray that inshallah he comes in a good form, a very handsome form. You know, those that have seen Jibreel in the narrations, he's very beautiful for the mu'min, very beautiful. But Ayatollah Muhammad Hussein Isfahani here mentions that I would go, he was in Najaf, a city where there's people, you know, walking and there's a war of Mawadi. He says, I would go outside if Allah told me I have 30 minutes to live. I would go outside and look at the people and see who needs something. If somebody wants something, for example, if someone wants me to carry items for him, somebody wants water, someone's thirsty, someone is hungry, feed them. I would go around that last 30 minutes of my life. You're talking about a person that is a philosopher, a person that is, you know, one of the three main usulis and roots of Islamic jurisprudence between Ayatollah Al-Ghazi Iraqi and Ayatollah Muhammad Hussein Isfahani and others, the main three people that Ayatollah Khou'i, for example, studied under all three of them. You see that Na'ini also, Ayatollah Mirza Na'ini, one of the three leaders of usul, Islamic contemporary usuli thought. That is, his is very deeply ingrained with philosophy too. An arif, a mystic, a philosopher, an usuli, a mujtahid. He would say, the last 30 minutes, go out in the street, seeing what people want. And I'm saying this to myself. I know that, you know, the cities we live in, you really can't do that sometimes. It's hard for you to, there's no one actually walking by your house. You have that last 30 minutes, it would be cross and nobody would pass by your house. I mean, yeah, it depends on how walkable your city is and where you live. I know in certain areas it's not walkable, but what I'm trying to say is this, is that this shows that priority or that misconception that a lot of us have, is to think that if I just do dua for myself and I just care for myself and family, then I'm going to be reach the highest levels of faith. No. So what can we do after learning all of this? What can we do? And we're going to wrap up these 3 days of discussions with this, from learning what Sayyidah Fatima Salatullah alayha, talking about the people of Medina going towards falsehood and being indifferent towards that disgrace and losing action of the people. What can we do? One is, we have to make our society also aware. First of all, each person has their own duties. Each person has their own talents. And one of the good things I love about this center is there's so many people that have different talents and different professions and things that we're good at. Look at what you're good at, look at what you're talented at, and you can give in that. And of course, for Allah, even if you get paid for it, that's fine. That's fine. You go to work, you're a nurse, you're a doctor, or any profession. You're really doing this for Allah, and Allah is just, you know, giving you rizq from this occupation. But you're truly doing this to serve humanity. So the first thing is to give insight, to give education to the world, to share your knowledge, to share Islam. This is, you're benefiting each other when you're spreading knowledge, when you're spreading the hadith and stories of Lady Fatima through social media, through having majalis, supporting your centers, either financially, giving time, volunteering, and understanding that these things, sadaqah, is not just giving money, of course, and it repels bala. You want to have a safe family, a good family. Sadaqah is not only giving money. Sadaqah is doing acts of kindness, any act of kindness. Even in some of the hadith says giving someone directions. Example of sadaqah, because there's hadith that the Prophet said, give sadaqah every day. So how can we do this? And then he gives some explanations. He gives some examples. Says what you can do is give someone, say, they ask for directions. You give them directions. Now, these things are, a little bit more difficult now. There's apps and you really don't need to give people directions anymore. But in general, what I'm saying is acts of benevolence, acts of kindness are all acts of sadaqah. So look at how you could serve. You can spread awareness, spread hadith of Ahlul Bayt, spread verses of Quran. There's hadith we have from, I believe, Adi ibn Musa Abdullah. If they knew the beauty of our speech, they would follow us. If you knew how beautiful the Ahlul Bayt speech is, just present some of the hadith from Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, your co-workers, your friends, your community, your fellow students, and you're getting society aware. And that is one of your biggest contributions. A while ago, and Iran was like this, one of my friends was saying that when you would come and sit down with people, they would say, in the religious people, they would say, would you want the tea or the hadith? Which one do you want it first? Every time they would meet with someone, they would either share to help each other out. That's what I'm talking about. Helping and sharing knowledge, teaching and giving knowledge. And that is, we have an educational center. We're trying to raise our Islamic literacy. And all of this, as we could say, is for remembrance for us. It's just a reminder from that program that Allah has in our fitrah. You're just reminding people of their duties again in this world. It's not, so a lot of times you think that, I'm going to have to talk to them about God, about religion, about spirituality, about hadith and verses. Well, all you're doing is you're reminding them. They're already inside, their fitrah is already programmed to worship Allah. You're just reminding them. So one, education, change people's worldview. Why am I here? Where am I going to go to? Who created me? Tell them, show them some of the proofs of God's existence, Islamic proofs that we have for God's existence. Very beautiful. A lot of the debaters, they use proofs of existence of God that came from the Islamic world. And so you give these proofs, you engage in debate with them, and you cause them to change. Second is that you do this together. The Quran talks about قُلْ إِنَّمَا أَعِذُكُمْ بِوَاحِدَةٍ. Say, I only advise you of one thing. أَن تَقُومُوا لِلَّهِ. That you stand for Allah. I only advise you for one thing, that you stand for Allah. Seeking truth, you can say. Mathna wa furada. You could say. Either in pairs or individually. So the Quran talks about pairs first, like the Prophet of Islam and Imam Ali, beautiful pair. Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein together. Later on, Imam Hussein, Hadrat Abbas. You're looking at these pairs. You're looking at being together and having that power as being in pairs or being in multiple. It may be a small group of people, and the studies have shown this, can influence a vast amount of people if they work together. So you're looking at awareness and changing the mentality of people and helping them out to figure out why they're here. And then doing this collectively. I can do so much by myself. But when we have, for example, brothers helping out, sisters helping out, we have a center that's helping out. We can do so much more in that range, especially in this day and age where you can spread your message all over the world. 3, remember these 3 principles, and inshallah we'll finish. What we are looking for, and you're guiding people towards these 4 principles. And in our Saturday discussions in the morning, we have a class on ethics and we reach social ethics. There are 4 principles that I want you to note these principles down, and that this is what we're looking for. This is what we want. One is the principle of justice. We're looking to implement this in our masjid, our communities, and then the greater level in our towns and the countries that we live in. One is the principle of justice and fairness. Everyone has to be treated equal and fair. If you want to serve your communities, this is the goal. This is what you're trying to implement. Besides causing awareness, working together, implementing these things. One, justice. Everyone's treated fair, no matter what race they are, no matter if they can speak English well, no matter if they come from another part of the world, no matter if they're rich or they're poor, whatever. Everyone should be treated fair in our communities, no matter if they're male or female. Doesn't matter. Everyone needs to be respected, and there needs to be fairness. This is the basic, general concept we have. And this is, from the Quran, we learn this is a command from the Quran. It says, Inna Allah ya'muru bil adl wal ihsan. Remember this verse. Indeed, Allah orders justice and good conduct or kindness. Indeed, Inna Allah ya'muru bil adl. Allah commands with justice, wal ihsan, and good conduct. And that's the second, the principle of kindness. To giving those that I know understand that in this situation that we had this year, many people went and helped the elders with their groceries. There are people that need special needs. There's times they need money. They need either because of the oppression they faced, either because they're an immigrant or a refugee, or whatever reason they don't speak English well. We also have to know this principle of ihsan, that in society, if you treat everyone fairly and how they contribute to society, you reward them, that's fairness. But then there's those that have special needs, and you give them ihsan. Because we're running out of time, there's not time to talk about these. But these two principles in our communities, adl and ihsan, that we work on justice and fairness, and also compassion and kindness to those that have more needs. 3, you're always concerned more about the spiritual over the material. That is how a society will thrive. Because the world is a muqaddama, prerequisite for the hereafter. So you're looking to build, at this, they're linked together, but you're always looking to give spiritual benefit, that which is the most. Because even if we live a life of, even though we shouldn't live a life like this, but if it happens, if we live a difficult life, but we have a hereafter that's everlasting for us, it's still worth it. So we're looking to implement not only material things. We say, Rabbana atina fid dunya hasana wa fil akhirati hasana. We do dunya and akhirat. But if there's a time where you have to choose between these two, you choose the spiritual. Just how Lady Fatima, she chose the hereafter over the dunya right after the Prophet of Islam passed away. And the 4th is priority to those that are family members, priority to those that are closer to us, our close friends, priority to our neighbors, because we cannot obviously serve a community that is, say, in another country, it's hard. But that city that you live in, that town that you live in, that street that you live in, you can be able to give a more priority to those that you're in more contact to, inshallah. So with this said, inshallah, we learn from Lady Fatima, salawatullah alayha, that this misconception that we can reach God without caring for one another, and that we can be like her in the verse of At'am, that we can reach a level that we begin to sacrifice and we lose that selfishness that we have, that we truly care for one another. And we wake up, and as I mentioned in that story, that if we have 30 minutes to live, we would reach this at least level of awareness and knowledge, that we would go and help each other out. And we can help each other out in knowledge and social media. We can help each other. And I didn't mention this when it comes to justice, promoting, hating racism, hating oppression, and informing people of what's going on throughout the world and how many children are starving in Yemen, for example, and throughout the world. I don't want to just mention names, but you guys all know throughout the entire world what's happening to people. Make them aware, and inshallah, Allah will raise us in the ranks of Lady Fatima Zahra, inshallah, and we can be with her, and we can be with her father and her husband and her children, inshallah, in this world and the hereafter. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajah. Tonight is reported to be the martyrdom of Lady Fatima Zahra, salawatullah alayha. Tonight is the night that Imam Ali alayhi salam mentions that he has a thorn in his throat, stuck in his throat. One of the biggest tests of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Was it, the battles that he had? Was it these champions that he destroyed? Was it these fortresses that he took out their huge doors? That wasn't the test of Imam Ali. Those were already done. The hardest test of Imam Ali is this precious daughter of the Holy Prophet. Brothers and sisters, I can promise you something. That however much you think and love Sayyidah Fatima, nobody can love her as much as Rasulullah. Nobody can love her as much as her father. I can promise you this. We will never know how much her father Rasulullah loved her. We cannot know how much Imam Ali alayhi salam loved her. The home is a place of tranquility. But what did they do to Amir al-Mu'mineen tonight? Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein, a few people. They're going to bury the most important lady that was ever created at nighttime for the people of Medina not to know. The same people of Medina that turned their backs on to Lady Fatima. Wallahu ja'ala lakum min buyutikum sakanan, Allah says in the Quran. Allah has made for you from your homes a place of rest. The home is a place of rest. But what happened to the house of Amir al-Mu'mineen? Every time now that his house, he passes by his house, he sees that his house has been burned. Parts of his house at least have been burned. Allah has made the night as again a place to rest. هُوَ الَّذِي جَعَلَ لَكُمَ اللَّيْلَ لِتَسْكُنُوا فِيهِ. Allah has made the night so you can rest. People rest at nighttime. And may we all be sacrificed for awwal madlum, Amir al-Mu'mineen. And from now on that he sets his dear wife, the daughter of the Prophet, in the grave. And Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein, Salman, a few people, Miqdad, a few people are there, maybe 7 people. And from now on, Imam Ali does not have any more nights that he can sleep well. He says goodbye to that sleep that he had. As he says in Nahj al-Balagha, Amma khuzni fasar, as to my grief, it knows no bounds. Imam Ali is not exaggerating. This is the truth. That his grief has no bounds anymore. Awwal madloom, his grief has no bounds. Wa amma layali famusahhat. And as to my nights, they will remain sleepless for me. Amir al-Mu'mineen will say goodbye to a nice sleep. And Allah has made the wife as a place of tranquility. So they have taken away any type of rest and tranquility from Amir al-Mu'mineen. وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا لَتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا. And Allah, from the signs He has created from yourselves, mates, that you may find tranquility in them. But every time he thinks, he used to, when he saw the face of Lady Fatima, he would become, his hamum and huzn and ahsan would be removed, his grief would be removed when he would look at the face of Lady Fatima. But now it is during the last moments of her life that he sees that she has been hit, she has been abused. And every time he looks at her face and sees the bruises in her face, Imam Ali, instead of becoming tranquil and at peace, he becomes saddened. Imam Ali alayhi salam is with Salman, with Miqdad, with Ammar, with Abu Dhar, Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein. they're fulfilling the will of Lady Fatima, that she says, don't tell anyone. Bury me at night and shroud me at night. And do not tell anyone. The highest position that we have of a lady is being buried secretly. And here it is Imam Ali alayhi salam saying, وَأُخْتُلِسَتْ الزَّهْرَى وَأُخْتُلِسَتْ, meaning that they have snatched away Zahra from me. They have stolen her from me. فَلَقَدْ اسْتُرْجَعَتْ الْوَدِيعَ, and then he gives his speech. It's in Nahj al-Balagha. He is burying the daughter of the Prophet of Islam. He's saying, وَلَقَدْ اسْتُرْجَعَتْ الْوَدِيعَ. Now I'm giving back this trust. I'm giving back the trust that he gave. Imam Ali is putting dirt on the holy body of Lady Fatimiyya Zahra and saying, فَلَمَّا نَقَذَ يَدَهُ مِنْ تُرَابِ الْقَبْرِ. Imam Ali is taking the dust from the grave, تراب الحاجة به الحزن فأرسل دموعه على خديه. It mentions Shaykh Mufid that his eyes are crying and his tears are reaching the cheeks of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. Sallallahu alayka ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. Sallallahu alayka ya Fatimiyya Zahra. Sallallahu alayka ya Rasulullah.
اللهم صل على فاطمة وأبيها وبعلها وبنيها وسر المستودع فيها بعدد ما حاط به علمك يا فاطمة الزهراء يا فاطمة الزهراء. You claim you love the Prophet, that for his sake you die. So weep now, he is weeping. He looks aside and cries, come see my daughter buried. He takes you there at night, her head in the grave he shows you. You can't look in his eyes. You say you love Ali, you would give your life for him. So weep now, he is weeping. He won't see her again. She wants to be alone as the pangs of death begin. What crime could she commit? She was always pure from sin. Fatima Zahra, 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 Fatima Zahra. See her daughter Zainab, she wonders as she steps. No mother to embrace her, to comb and stroke her hair. No one to say I love you, to smile when life's unfair. Oh little baby girl, your mother is nowhere. Just Ali and his his daughters, his sons, and no one else. How can you raise a family, oh Ali, by yourself? Your house has lost its lantern, your heart has lost itself. This pain that is inside you, to whom will you now tell? Fatima to Zahra, Fatima Zahra, Fatima to Zahra, Fatima Zahra, Fatima to Zahra, Fatima Zahra, Fatima to Zahra, Fatima Zahra. You marry her in heaven, you married her in heaven. She cared for you on earth, two cells for one another, two souls for one another, were destined from their birth. Her face would solve your problems like nothing in this world. How can you live a day without the prophet's little girl? Hiding all these months, the bruises on her side. Don't let my husband know, for it will wound his pride. That man came to his house and pushed his wife aside. They beat the prophet's daughter. At age 18, she died. He buried her at night so the Muslims wouldn't know, for they had killed his wife and caused them all this woe. How hard it was to lift her and place her down so low, and put the dirt upon her and say goodbye and go. Fatima to Zahra, Fatima Zahra, Fatima to Zahra, Fatima Zahra, Fatima to Zahra, Fatima Zahra, Fatima to Zahra. Fatima Zahra. Who are those little boys who kiss their mother's hand, who've wept so hard and long they can no longer stand? The night sky is perplexed, the earth can't understand. Why was their mother killed in her own fatherland? Everyone is weeping, oh Ali, for this loss. The prophet's only daughter, abused and crushed with us. We cannot stand before her. We fear her eyes because her mirth is Allah's mirth and her anger is Allah's. He's speaking to the prophet and pondering their fate. How did the Muslim nation mistreat the Ahlul Bayt? They prayed and read the Quran, but left the prophet's gate. Though God told them to love them, they saw nothing but hate. Fatima to Zahra, Fatima Zahra, Fatima to Zahra, Fatima Zahra, Fatima to Zahra, Fatima Zahra, Fatima to Zahra, Fatima Zahra. Everybody knows that a father cannot bear to hear his daughter suffers when he cannot be there. They told him of the news, the angels were were ashamed. The greatest woman born, your nation has betrayed. We claim we love the prophet, that for his sake we die. We weep now, he is weeping. He looks aside and cries, come see my daughter Mary. He takes you there at night. Her head engraved he shows you. You can look in his eye. Fatima to Zahra, Fatima Zahra, Fatima to Zahra, Fatima Zahra, Fatima to Zahra. ما زهراء فاطمة الزهراء فاطمة زهراء يا 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 زهراء السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء يا بنت محمد يا قرة عين الرسول يا سيدتنا ومولاتنا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجية عند الله اشفعي لنا عند الله. Best time for hajat. يا وجيهة عند الله. Mother, اشفعي لنا عند الله. زيارة فاطمة الزهراء إن شاء الله. التماس دعاء جميعا. This is a very blessed time, inshallah. Please include us in your dua. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا ممتحنة امتحنك الله الذي خلقك قبل أن يخلقك فوجدك لما امتحنك صابرا وزعمنا أن لك أولياء مصدقون وصابرون لكل ما أتانا به أبوك صلى الله عليه وآله وأتى به وصيه فإنا نسألك إن كنا صدقناك إلا ألحقتنا بتصديقنا لهما لنبشر أنفسنا بأننا قد طهرنا بولايتك. السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله السلام عليك يا بنت نبي الله. السلام عليك يا بنت حبيب الله. السلام عليك يا بنت خليل الله. السلام عليك يا بنت صفي الله. السلام عليك يا بنت أمين الله. السلام عليك يا بنت خير خلق الله. السلام عليك يا بنت أفضل أنبياء الله ورسله وملائكته. السلام عليك يا بنت خير البرية. السلام عليك يا سيدة نساء العالمين من الأولين والآخرين. السلام عليك يا زوجة ولي الله وخير الخلق بعد رسول الله. السلام عليك يا أم الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة. السلام عليك أيتها الصديقة الشهيدة. السلام عليك أيتها الرضية المرضية. السلام عليك أيتها الفاضلة الزكية. السلام عليك أيتها الحوراء الإنسية. السلام عليك أيتها التقية النقية. السلام عليك أيتها المحدثة العليمة. السلام عليك أيتها المظلومة المغصوبة. السلام عليك أيتها المضطهدة المقهورة. السلام عليك يا فاطمة بنت رسول الله ورحمة الله وبركاته. صلى الله عليك وعلى روحك وبدنك. أشهد أنك مضيت على بينة من ربك وأن من سرك فقد سر رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. ومن جفاك فقد جفا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. ومن آذاك فقد أذى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. ومن وصلك فقد وصل رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. ومن قطعك فقد قطع رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. لأنك بدعت منه روح الذي بين جنبي. أشهد الله ورسوله وملائكته أني راض عمن رضيت عنه. ساخط على من سخطت عليه، متبرئ ممن تبرأت منه، موالي لمن واليت، معادي لمن عاديت، مبغض لمن أبغضت، محب لمن أحببت، وكفى بالله شهيدا وحسيبا وجازيا ومثيبا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. 5 times آية الشريف. أما يجيب for the ظهور of صاحب العصر والزمان، for the shafa of all the marda of Islam, for the hajat of mu'mineen wal mu'minat, for youth, for young ones, for our brothers and sisters who are struggling in any way possible, anything you can think of, your friends, families. This is the best time, inshallah, to intercede through Seyed Fatima Zahra. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أما يجيب مضطر إذا دعا ويكشف السوء، أما يجيب المضطر 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 إذا دعا ويكشف السوء. اللهم عجل وليك الفرج. السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء، يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين. السلام عليك يا حسن بن علي، السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين وعلى جميع شهداء كربلاء خصوصا بالفضل العباس. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا علي بن الحسين زين العابدين. السلام عليك يا إمام محمد الباقر علم النبيين. السلام عليك يا إمام جعفر الصادق. السلام عليك يا إمام موسى الكاظم. السلام عليك يا إمام علي بن موسى الرضا. السلام عليك يا إمام محمد بن علي الجواد. السلام عليك يا إمام علي بن محمد الهادي. السلام عليك يا إمام سيدنا علي الزكي العسكري. السلام عليك يا صاحب العصر والزمان. الأمان الأمان الأمان. السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن. أجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته بالنبي وآله. رحم الله من يقرأ الفاتحة مع الصلوات. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Dear brothers and sisters, this is the end of our 3-night programs for the Shahada and martyrdom of Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra. I want to thank you again for joining us these nights, for being with us, for your prayers, your du'as, your support. Inshallah, we'll have more of these programs in the future. I'd like to sincerely thank the organizers, khususan especially our dear Seyed Maulana Abbas Razavian, who works tirelessly to spread this beautiful faith and the love of the Ahlul Bayt, who constantly keeps classes. Inshallah, those of you who know about them will join and benefit from them weekly. We thank you, Maulana, and inshallah, we remember your marhumeen, your mother, and also especially your teacher, Ayatollah Mujtahidi. Again, thank you so much. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajal farajah.